Hi, everyone. Welcome to Honoring Your Soul Contracts. I'm Michelle Brock, and I'm really excited to present this class to you today. It's going to be the first in a series of classes that I'm going to teach on topics connected to relationships and soulmates. This is obviously a very complicated topic. I think that relationships are kind of the hardest part about, living life in human form, in physical form. And the reason I chose to do the soul contracts first is because it really kind of introduces my philosophy about relationships and particularly soulmates, why we meet, how we meet, kind of the larger purpose that it serves, right? Soulmate reunions specifically. So there are going to be some terms and topics that I hit on today that might seem a little like surface, and I'm going to go into them deeper at a later time, and I'll flag that when it comes up, just so you know. So I'll be introducing a lot of different kind of ideas and concepts and terms that at a later date I'll go into further. I also want to say at this point that everything I teach is based on my own direct experience or the experiences that I've seen my clients have. So what that means is, I'm not a religious scholar. I didn't learn this stuff by reading books, although I do read a lot. It doesn't have a specific academic or religious background. So these concepts that I talk about kind of things that happen in the space between lives, past lives, life after death, are things that I've watched my clients experience and that they've described to me or that I've experienced myself. So this is practical, real life, not conceptual. This is stuff that I've actually seen. So, right. Okay. So I'm actually going to share my screen with you right now. Because I put together a little presentation that'll probably make it easier for some of you who do want to take notes. So give me a second. Hold on. Great. All right. So here is my presentation, Honoring Your Soul Contracts. So basically, there's going to be some journaling work involved in this class. So everybody get out your journal or have a pen and paper handy, because we're going to do some self-reflection exercises. And then also, I do want to point out that there is a meditation that I've included this week that's meant to be a companion to this course. So all of the kind of reflection and journal work and ideas that I present, you're going to have a chance to actually experience it yourself through the meditation I included. Okay, so here we go. What is a soul contract? That's a term that I think a lot of people use. And like I said, this is my particular take on it. But in order to start talking about soul contracts, I don't want to skip over really anything. I kind of want to go from the beginning. We really have to talk about first, what is the soul, right? And I use terms that are very kind of almost like I want to say generic in some ways, because like I said, it's not about a certain religious tradition. I like soul, I like spirit. Some people prefer consciousness or their higher self or their inner self. It doesn't really matter what you call it. To me, I define a soul as that part of us that survives death. That part of us that doesn't have anything to do with our physical bodies, and that separates from our physical body, and is the part of us that also reincarnates, but it's also the part of us that experiences the realm of spirit. Okay, so I'm going to use that. I'm going to flag that right now. Realm of spirit is something that I'm going to bring up way more in depth in a future class, but I'm going to define that as where we go when we die, right? I do not believe in heaven, and I don't believe in hell. I have come to kind of, over the experiences that I've had and watched my clients have, to take a little bit more of a compassionate viewpoint, that it's not necessarily about good or bad. It's not black and white. It's a little bit more gray and more nuanced. So I'll go into that in more detail later. But we have this realm of spirit, which is where we go when we die, which is actually all around us. This is why, people who are mediums can have, contact the spirit world. And this is why people can have, experiences with loved ones or tap into the realm of spirit. So suffice it to say, quantum physics is kind of proving that things that mystics have talked about for thousands of years, right? Like multiple dimensions of reality, all happening concurrently. So, that's kind of how I see the realm of spirit. It's another realm. And there are probably other realms as well. We can probably move in and out. I don't really know how many realms there are, maybe an infinite amount. So when we die, that part of us that survives death, which we could call soul, we could call spirit, whatever we want to call it, goes to this place called the realm of spirit. And your soul is not your body. It's not your mind. It's your consciousness, right? And it's your eternal essence. And that part of you is the part that chooses to reincarnate, okay? Reincarnation is a choice. You signed up for this, okay? You decided to be here. And you decided to be here based on the optimal opportunities to learn and grow in this life, right? So, this is something that I think is really, really important for particularly for people who have difficult past or difficult childhoods. You did choose it. You chose your life. You chose your circumstances, right? And so you choose your parents, right? You choose all of your challenges. That basically everything that happens in a lifetime involves divine planning, but yet we still have our choices. And I'll go more into this later, right? So I don't believe in fate. I really believe in destinies, but we kind of choose the blueprint, so to speak, of the life that we're going to have. And so after we die, we seem to undergo a process that I'm going to call a life review. And, I've watched thousands of people experience this under hypnosis, right? Like after they die, that they have this perspective shift, this viewpoint change that, wow, I'm aware of my journey now over many lifetimes. And so I can see what I did in this particular life and the choices that I made and how they could have been better or different. So during that life review, we look back and we reflect on everything that we did and everything we failed to do based on what we decided before. So it's kind of our own assessment. There are people who do describe having spirit guides or ascended masters or evolved beings that seem to kind of be involved with that life review process, maybe like overseeing it or advising, but it really seems to be personal. Nobody's telling you, oh, you should have done this, you should have done that. This is self-reflection, these life reviews. So we sit there and we're like, oh, wow, yeah, I was supposed to work on XYZ. Here's where I did. Here's what I did. Here's where I could be better, right? So it's a self-review. So we reincarnate in order to learn, to grow, to evolve spiritually, right? And the way that this growth happens is through lessons and challenges. Life is not easy. It's really not. It's difficult. The realm of spirit is home, right? That's where we are fully supported and, reunited with divine consciousness and all that is, and we're aware of all of our journey over many lifetimes. We're born into this forgetting and this place of feeling kind of disconnected from source. And the challenge is to kind of, learn how to figure out, what the challenge is or what you decided to do without actually remembering it, which is actually why passive life regression is such a powerful tool, because you're kind of like, oh yeah, what if I could find the Cliffs Notes to what I decided to tackle or undergo in this life. So, but reincarnation is a process that is about becoming better, both personally as individuals and collectively as a society. So over many, many lifetimes, we grow and evolve, and then that's an individual process and a collective societal process as well. Okay. So how do these lessons these challenges present themselves? Well, they come from our interactions with others. Sometimes we get these lessons, in ourselves. Maybe it's an illness or a handicap or a certain challenge. But many, many times we present these lessons to each other. Okay. So we reincarnate in order to experience life in physical form, but we are also here to experience relationship with others. And this is something that I have, I honor in my own life and in my practice as a life coach, really consulting people. Relationship is a spiritual practice. It's a deeply difficult spiritual practice as well. A lot of people think like, oh, if I could just go meditate on a mountaintop all day, it would be so much easier. And in some ways it would, right? Or more difficult in other ways to kind of learn to be solitary. But learning to be in relationship with others is a difficult, arduous spiritual practice, right? We're here to learn lessons about love, giving and receiving love. So we present these lessons to each other, okay? So what is a soulmate? And again, this is something that I'm going to stick a pin in. I'm going to do a lot of different classes on a soulmate, on different types of soulmates and what they mean in your life. But the way that I define soulmate, and because I think that this is a term that we kind of hear too much, right? Like, oh, it's my soulmate. He's the one or she's the one. There are many, right? We have many, 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 many. And so I define a soulmate as anyone you've known before in a past life. That could be a lot of people, and it is a lot of people. So we have different types of soulmates. But basically we do meet people that we've known before in a past life. And I think most people can reference this, right? Like that feeling of familiarity, like they just seem like somebody I know, or I know them from somewhere. So you might not feel that sense of familiarity, but the way that they show up in your life might feel familiar. Or in hindsight, looking back at the role they played in your life, you're like, oh, that must have been somebody I knew before in a past life. So I'm introducing the idea that, we have these soulmates that we connect with over many lifetimes, and that we need to approach it in that way, that it's important, right? So we meet because we have karma with that person, or the reason for meeting has a karmic reason. I'm going to put a pin in that term as well, too. I'm going to do a whole class just on karma. Because again, this is a term that people use a lot and maybe overuse. Just really quickly, and like I said, I'll go more into depth with this, but karma is not about good or bad or punishment, or you did something, so therefore something bad is going to happen to you. I have not found that to be true at all. What I have discovered from the work that I've done with my clients and the work I've done with myself is that karma is more about balance, that we bring things into balance with other people. So these are through our actions or our inactions, because sometimes inaction is just as consequential as action, right? Especially when we're thinking about lessons around love, giving and receiving love. So over many lifetimes, we accrue karma with this person, right? And that's why we meet. You meet because you had a karmic reason for meeting. And like, again, like I said, it might seem like I'm kind of glossing over this term. I'm going to go way more into depth with like actually what karma means, what it looks like, and how to handle it. But I'm just introducing it right now as a kind of general concept. Okay. Not about punishment, not about good or bad, although sometimes things will present themselves as an additional challenge, almost like if you failed the karmic test, in the next life, that test might be bigger and more grandiose or more difficult or more arduous, right? So that's what a soulmate is. We have different types of soulmates, and I've kind of broken them down into like 3 really, really rough categories. And again, this is fraught with nuance, and I'm going to go way more into depth into these different types of soulmates. So I kind of break them down in like basic categories. And the first one I call romantic soulmates. These are people we date. These are people we fall in love with, right? These are the soulmates who are meant to be long-term romantic partners in our current life. And I want to include also too, they could be short-term romantic partners, but they show up and there's a romantic feeling to it. Now, some romantic partners can evolve into friendships, or it could change, but that initial meeting feels romantic. Or you could be friends first and then it turns romantic. If you have a romantic relationship with another person, I'm going to just put that under the umbrella of romantic soulmates. So a lot of people talk about soulmates in the context of romance and kind of romanticize it a little bit also too. I just want to kind of bring up the idea that a lot of people talk about a twin flame and a twin soul. I do believe that twin flame, twin soul exists, but the reason I'm going to call it the twin flame myth is because a lot of people think that's what they're looking for in a partner. You're not. I actually don't know very many twin flames who are married. So what a twin flame is, it's a certain type of soulmate who, according to legend, and this makes sense from what I understand about nature and evolution and how our cells in our body work, and like kind of looking at nature as a blueprint of like how these cycles work. So just like a cell will divide in order to bring growth and evolution, that we actually can on a soul level divide, right? And so we have this primordial other half that's reincarnating simultaneously, sometimes not simultaneously to us. And it's in order for us to experience separateness. So when twin flames do reunite, it usually doesn't go so well because most of us are not spiritually evolved enough to handle being married to our twin flame because the mirror would just be too powerful. And there's generally kind of a destructive thing that could come about it unless you're a very, very evolved, both of you are very spiritually evolved. Legends like Romeo and Juliet and Tristan and Isolde are connected to this idea of twin flames. So the few twin flames I do know who are married, they met later in life, and it was maybe like each other's like second or third marriage. I know twin flames that are business partners. I know twin flames that are actual twins, right? So people are like, oh, I'm looking for my other half. No, we're not looking for someone to complete us, right? That doesn't exist. The idea is to be a whole person unto yourself. And like I said, I'm going to go way more into depth in this in a subsequent class, but I just wanted to kind of put that out there. That's not what we're looking for. We're not looking for our other half. But sometimes we have romantic partners in this life that weren't romantic in our past lives. I have people that find out their husband was their father in a past life or their brother, right? So we kind of switch roles with each other. We're not always with somebody in a romantic context. Although as soulmates start to kind of evolve together spiritually, if you do have a very powerful spiritual connection with somebody who's romantic, chances are you've been on that streak for a while. Because I've found that romantic soulmates are some of the most intense soulmate relationships because of that one-on-one, kind of deep intensity that we have with romantic soulmates. So they can be easy or they can be challenging. I found that they're usually both, right? So that's romantic soulmates under that umbrella. Then we have what I call soul family mates. These are the people that are the closest in our lives. So they can show up in any relationship, siblings, children, parents, friends, grandparents, coworkers. These are the people that show up in our life to support us, to remind us that we're loved. These tend to be the easier relationships too. I think that most people can kind of reference, that particular grandparent that they just got along with better than others, or that friend that just gets you, right? So they're not romantic in nature. It could be like your mother or your child or your friend, but they have a deep spiritual dimension to that love because of all of the lifetimes that you've connected with them, right? We really do have this beautiful kind of spider web of the ways that we connect over many lifetimes. Okay, so that's the second type. The third type, I'm calling karmic soulmates. And again, that's that term karma. This is actually the term that I use to describe these relationships that kind of like, mess us up a little bit, right? I think most of us can reference that. They're difficult with hard lessons. And often a karmic soulmate will feel sticky. It's like that relationship, like, I love you, I hate you, I can't live without you, and there's a strong pull or draw, like, you just can't break up with them, even though they're just bad for you. Or, it's this parent that isn't going to show up for you, and they have addiction problems, and but yet you keep falling into this pattern, enabling them, or whatever it is, right? Because they don't have to always be romantic, although some of the, like I said, some of the more intense soulmate relationships do tend to be romantic. So these karmic soulmates usually represent kind of a choice or a fork in the road or a challenge, something you need to fix or change, right? So whenever you start to feel this like intense pull to this other person, and it might not even make sense on paper, right? Some people are just like, I don't know why I can't get this person out of my head. There's usually a lesson or a challenge connected to it. A more spiritually evolved relationship is actually going to feel a lot more peaceful, right? I've really kind of come to discover that, and not just in my own life, but in other people's life. It's kind of like, this feels kind of like normal and nice. It's like missing the drama. Not that all relationships aren't work, but karmic soulmates are particularly difficult, right? Okay. So those are the broad categories I've kind of drawn for like 3 different types of soulmates. So we reunite with other souls for a reason, to present each other with lessons, challenges, opportunities to grow. Okay. This is why we reincarnate with other people. So you meet somebody, it feels sticky. You're like, uh-oh, there's a challenge here, right? There's a lesson. And these lessons can really change you. And that's the point of it, to help push you along on your soul's evolution. So these karmic lessons are, quite simply said, about love. And, I know that that's a term that's often kind of overused, like love, and, love in many forms, love in a spiritual sense, a love for yourself, as well as a love for others, and a love for all beings, a love for, the world at large, right? So that's kind of what we reincarnate in order to learn lessons connected to about love. So, okay. So soul contracts are the agreements we make with our various soulmates. And you can't see this at the top. Sorry, this little bubble's cutting it off. But we agree to present each other with lessons and opportunities for growth. So guess what? We decided, you know what? I'm going to be a karmic soulmate. I'm going to show up at 25, right? And this is what it's going to feel like. And this is what we're going to present each other with. So we agree when we will meet, how we will meet, and how we present challenges to each other. What we don't decide is how it's going to end up or how it's going to go. So the future's not determined. So it's kind of like, we're going to show up. This is going to be the test. I don't know what you're going to do. I don't know what I'm going to do, but I hope we figure it out. Right. So that's what a soul contract looks like. So they're through our soulmates that we decide what role we're going to play in each other's lives. Right. And the circumstances. A lot of people are like, when am I going to meet my soulmate? Divine timing. Divine timing is a really important part to kind of all of this, because sometimes two soulmates meet and it's like right person, wrong time. I've seen that a lot. Or they meet and they don't connect until like a later time. So there is kind of, like I said, we decided this before. There is a blueprint here for kind of like what is going to happen. So soul contracts are about choices. They're about becoming better and growing spiritually. So soul contracts can be about changing someone's worldview, opening their heart to love, finding more compassion, or wanting to live your life in a more grounded, healthy, loving way, right? Some of the examples that I could bring up with this are, you meet somebody who is an alcoholic, and then you decide after you break up that you're going to live your life in a more healthy way and deal with, your own addiction issues because you saw that mirrored back in this person, right? And that you get that person the help they need, right? That's like an oversimplification of something that would probably be a very complicated soul contract. Or a tragic death. This is something that is incredibly challenging. Somebody comes and they die suddenly, right? And the impact that has on the family and the people around them, right? It changes the way they look at everything. Many people do have profound spiritual awakenings through tragedy and loss, right? That it kind of introduces a new path and a new way of being for you. Divorce, breakup, right? Like, we're going to meet, we're going to get married. It's not going to work out, but you're going to learn a lot about yourself in that process. And you're going to learn a lot about letting go. And, then I'm going to meet somebody else and you're going to meet somebody else and we're both going to be better for it. Right. So soul contracts help steer us towards our goal and our life purpose and what I'm going to call our highest destiny. Okay. Soul contracts are formed in the space between lives. So when we're in the realm of spirit. So it's part of this life review and this next life planning process. And it's based on this perspective that I was describing, that we have an awareness of our larger journey over many lifetimes in spirit form. Soul contracts are sacred and they are binding. Two people who are meant to meet will meet. Period, period, period. Right? And like I said, a lot of people, come to me like, oh, where's my soulmate? Where are they going to come? You have soul contracts with other people that you don't know about. You don't know what the timing is that you decided, right? Or what you're supposed to learn and grow and do with other soulmates. That's often common, particularly when people are trying to manifest a romantic partner. No, you're supposed to learn a few more lessons with other karmic soulmates before you get to meet the person who's meant to be your partner. Okay. How do soul contracts end? So, because I get a lot of people that are like, oh, I'm so tired of these karmic relationships. And like, do I have to keep meeting this person over many lifetimes? They'll see that they shared 4 past lives with somebody and it has this really difficult lesson. And they're like, oh, can I just be done with this? Right. So some soul contracts can last for many lifetimes. And this is how we build that sense of familiarity with our soulmates. So, like I said, you feel like you've known them before, or you have a million things in common. And, you almost feel like you may have just missed each other like a lot of times. But that sense of familiarity and bonding comes from these soul contracts that do last over many lifetimes. So the soul contract is binding until we learn what we're supposed to learn and we achieve what we're supposed to do. So you can actually kind of fast track your soul contracts with people, and this process never ends, because you'll find that you have soul contracts with other people and more things to work on. I don't know if the reincarnation process ever does end. Some traditions do talk about that like, that you can achieve nirvana and be done reincarnating. Maybe, but like maybe you start reincarnating somewhere else, a different realm, a different planet. I've heard people talk about that. Some of my clients have described having past lives in other planets, other realms, other places. So, to me, a cycle and a process implies that it's never ending. But once we master that lesson, the soul contract is done. So when you start to approach your soulmate relationships mindfully like this, like, okay, what's my soul contract with this person? Then you can figure out what the lesson is and more consciously navigate that relationship. People talk a lot about conscious relationships. You can't really approach a relationship through that kind of conscious lens without really kind of looking at it from the viewpoint of, what's my soul contract with this person? Okay. Honoring your soul contracts means that you change the lens by which you view others who come into your life. So when you're somebody who is in tune with what soul contracts are and what they mean, when you meet somebody new, you approach it in a different way, right? Why have I met you? What am I meant to learn from you? What can I teach you, right? And that becomes, every soulmate encounter becomes kind of fraught with meaning. It's a different way to approach relationships. And like I said, this is why I decided to do the soul contracts class first, to really kind of introduce this idea. So every person who crosses your path has a message or a lesson for you. Yeah, you can kind of drive yourself crazy, especially if you live in a big city like I do. I live in New York City, where, you don't have to be walking down the street or be in the elevator with everybody and be like, what am I supposed to teach you? What are you supposed to teach me? Sometimes, it doesn't have to be that, intricate, I guess, but it's just in general, if somebody, connects with you in a certain way, to kind of receive that in a certain way and focus on what you're giving, right? So making all of your encounters with people as loving as possible, right? By looking at it like, okay, well, I have a soul contract with this person. There's a challenge here. There's a lesson. I'm supposed to be loving. So every encounter with others has meaning in your life and also in theirs. So this is not easy to do. Relationships are complicated. And the more important your soul contract is, and when I say important, I mean like the more evolved the spiritual lesson connected to it, the more intense that relationship will feel, right? So the idea of like your soulmate or your partner or, your friend, even any person in front of you, is a mirror back to you. That stuff is hard. So relationship work is work you do on yourself, right? Yes, you're focusing on the other person, but you're like, oh, that really just triggered me. Why? Right? Or when you say this to me, I have a difficult time accepting that truth, right? Or I'm going to yell at you because I'm filled with shame, right? And I'm going to make it about you, right? So this, like I said, this is not easy stuff. And I will go way more into depth in conscious relationships and soulmate relationships in further webinars. So I'm kind of just wanted to add this at this point. It's kind of like, yeah, honor your soul contract. It's not easy. It's not always easy. Okay. So now we're going to get to the point where I want everybody to bring out their journal, because we're going to think about the soul contracts that you have personally in your own life. So take a minute and think about, what relationships do you want to understand and honor the most right now? And I want you to just knee jerk, first thing that pops into your mind. Don't think about it even too much, because you can actually do this as a regular practice. But for our purposes, for the first time, I just want it to be the first thing that comes to mind. So I want you to pick somebody from each of these three categories. And if it's a romantic soulmate, it can be a current partner. It can be a former partner. I don't want you to do a future partner, because I want you to be able to kind of make specific references. I want you to pick somebody who's a soul family mate. And I want you to pick somebody that you would categorize as a karmic soulmate. So the romantic soulmate, it could be difficult or easy. The soul family mate, that's usually generally a relationship with an easier flow. The karmic soulmate is one of those like head scratchers, like this person just messed up my life and left destruction in their wake. So take a minute and pick somebody in each of these three categories. So this is the journaling work that I want you to do. And again, like I said, there's a meditation that I made that will help you kind of delve deeper into this part, these questions. So finding that soul contract with their soulmate. And here's some kind of journal prompt questions that I've kind of come up with. What truths do they reflect to you? Where do you get triggered? Right? Where you kind of like, I don't know why, I just had this knee-jerk reaction to, something that they said. What are you learning from that relationship? And what seems to be the higher or divine purpose for meeting them? How do they illuminate where you need to live more fully in your truth? That's a big one, right? Your soul contract with somebody is never going to be about not being authentic. Soul contracts are connected to your soul, not your body, not your job, not your plan for yourself consciously in this mind. It's your higher purpose. And that always connects to being more fully in your own truth. And then the last one I brought up is how can you love them more deeply? And like I said, love with a capital L, I want to kind of say like divine love, spiritual love. And so I want you to start to think about this with these people, and then we're going to do the meditation. I'm going to try to help guide you through, more of that unconscious process and letting it come to you with what your soul contract is with your soulmate. Okay. So in conclusion, by honoring your soul contracts, your approach to your relationships will shift, and you can navigate them much more consciously. So the idea that we kind of go through these relationships with just our knee-jerk reactions, or, this is what this person made me feel, and this is what's going on with this person, to kind of really present your relationship as sacred, right? That this is someone I have a soul contract with. Like in the realm of spirit, we decided we were going to meet, and this person is playing an important role in my life, even if they make me angry, even if I'm not enjoying my relationship with them because of how difficult it can be. So once you start to navigate your relationships more consciously, you can actually turn these karmic relationships into more spiritually evolved relationships, and like I said, some of these lessons are about giving love. Some of them are about receiving love. Some of them are about self-love, which means walk away, right? Like leave that person where they are and you walk away. That's often a challenge that accompanies a soul contract, right? I'm just not going to put up with this anymore. So over many lifetimes, we generate this divine kind of spiritual love within the context of our relationships. And what ends up happening is that we kind of can carry that energy into the world around us, right? And influence other people, right? Because energy, isn't created or destroyed, but it also can expand and contract. It's truly my belief that if everybody kind of approached relationships as spiritual practice, by looking at soul contracts, that this is the divine spiritual love that will heal the world, right? I believe that at this point in our humanity, that what we need to learn to do is to come back together in unity and love. And we can start to add that energy to the planet through honoring our soul contracts. Okay, so I'm going to stop sharing. Okay. Thank you all so much for joining me. And like I said, this is the first of probably what'll be 3 or 4 classes that I'm going to do over the course of the next several months that are in the realm of soulmates and relationships. But I hope this helped. And like I said, use the companion meditation that I created for this. And hopefully all of us will begin to honor our relationships and honor our soul contracts in a more deep and a more profound way. So thank you.